All right, Hillary Vaughan. Thank you very much, Hillary. Our next guest, by the way, is a U.S. combat veteran trained with the Israeli Defense Forces and is also running a Democratic-controlled Virginia U.S. House seat race. Derrick Anderson is here to react to all of this. Derrick, look, in a situation like this, we're going to hear all sorts of conflicting reports. Hamas is very good at changing things. Immediately, that hospital was blown up. They immediately blamed Israel. Subsequently, information suggests it was not from Israeli forces, but perhaps from a splinter group of Hamas. But this is typical of what goes on. No one's going to, depending on what you believe and who's in the right, is going to pretty much guide you as to what you believe comes out of this war, right? So it doesn't really accomplish anything.
Yeah, Ashley, and thank you for having me. You know, this is not the first time this is going to happen. This is going to be one of many times in which this happens, and we know Hamas's propaganda techniques. I think it's important to highlight the propaganda that Hamas has been putting out versus what the IDF and the Israelis have been. If you look, after 10 plus days ago, when Hamas came over and killed and murdered individuals and then took them hostages, their reaction was to take videos and put it on social media of them with women and children in cages, women and children that had been beaten and had been marred from the attacks that they did, and then parade them through the streets of Gaza. On the other side, you look at the IDF, and the IDF's video and what they're putting out to people are precision raids going in and finding Hamas killers. But they're videotaping how they're doing it with proportionality, and they're doing it discriminately. And that's the propaganda that Israel is putting out. I find it troubling to see these members of Congress up there. And the protests that happened in Washington, D.C. yesterday, I think there's something to be said that we in America are very much value our constitutional rights to protest. But I think there's a difference between having the right to do something and whether it's right. And I think that moral compass is lacking right now in our country.
You're a combat veteran. It's going to be very difficult, isn't it, for the IDF forces to try and hunt down these Hamas terrorists while at the same time trying to protect hostages. It's a very, very delicate, difficult mission. And I would assume, given that their history there, you believe they're up to the mission.
I do, actually. I worked with the Israeli Defense Forces and the Special Operations Forces while I was a Green Beret over in Israel. I had the opportunity to actually work with some of their tunnel teams and some of their explosive teams. They are very capable. They are trained very, very well. And in fact, when I was in the southern portion of Israel, they actually took me right outside of a kibbutz, and we were looking into Gaza. And it was really fascinating to see that they were pointing to different areas on the map where there were schools and hospitals. And I asked them, well, why was that noteworthy? And they said they had intelligence, and they had actually seen with their own eyes that some of those hospitals and schools were the beginning of the tunnel systems. And I think that Israel is 100%, and the IDF are 100% capable of conducting this ground force. I think that the added layer that has never been really seen in this situation is the fact that these tunnel systems are intricate. There's, I think, about over 300 miles of tunnel systems within Gaza, an area about twice the size of Washington, D.C., and having those hostages, they're going to be separating them. They're going to have them in different locations. In the past, the IDF and the Israelis would go through and they would either clear with weapons, small arms, and or dogs those tunnels. And in this situation, it adds an extra level of threat that the fact that they're going to have those hostages down in those tunnels.
I've got 30 seconds, Derrick. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli leader, says this is going to be a long war. Would you agree with that? And how long could we be talking?
There's no saying how long it could be talking. I mean, we've seen, Ashley, over the last week, right, since I think the 10 days ago when the Hamas came over the border, within the first 72 hours, there was already talks that a ground force was imminent, a ground force was imminent, a ground force is imminent. And we've seen, over the last week that it's been delayed, will it be for weather, whether it be for the Biden administration showing up. I do think that there's something to be said, though, that Netanyahu is waiting to make sure he gets confirmation from the world and his allies that they're ready to have his back. And I think the president's message needs to be that tonight.
Derrick Anderson, we thank you for your service, firstly. And second, thank you very much for talking with us today. Derrick Anderson, really appreciate it. Okay, time now to check in with Brian Benberg. It's Brenberg.